I'll give it a second. See if we have anybody letting us know when we cut out. 41. Okay, so we're back. All right, sorry. Stream just cut out. Don't know what happened, but we're back and we got plenty of time. I think I was asking you about Whiteside, right? And if he plays, do you like him? And does Karl Anthony Towns availability influence your opinion of Whiteside if both of them play, or if Whiteside plays and Towns doesn't and Gorgui Dieng gets another start?
It's better if Towns is in, but that doesn't change, much for me. I think that the biggest thing is, while Whiteside does have a really high ceiling and he's playing big minutes, he's also really expensive. And he's close to Drummond in price. He's a lot more expensive than guys like Steven Adams, Capella, Tristan Thompson. So not somewhere I'd be looking in cash games or, like an optimal lineup, but it does give you the option potentially of having a really low owned tournament pivot, because where people do pay up at center, they're going for Drummond, especially now that Whiteside's questionable. And then it's also going to be a popular position to save some money. So you should get pretty low ownership there, which makes him interesting in tournaments just because he does have, 55, 60 fantasy point upside. But it wouldn't be a priority for me or one of my highest owned guys, even if he is ruled in, just because with the lack of value on this slate, it's kind of prohibitive paying up for multiple guys at that price point. And you have Drummond, who looks really good, for a little bit more. You have guys like Westbrook that are a little bit less. Dame Lillard, on the same team, that's a little bit less. So it's really hard to prioritize Whiteside.
It is. And there aren't really any pivots around his price point at center that make it easy to get off of him. I would say if you are going to do it, either have like a 2v2 or swap or whatever, talking, one or two lineups, or play him in the utility spot, because you could always get to like a Lillard or a Westbrook whose game started the same time or later. But yeah, other than that, there's not a whole lot because Embiid's out and Drummond will already be playing. Makes it tough. And if Towns plays, his price is way higher than Whiteside's.
You have Adams and Capella that you can swap to also.
Right. I'm just saying, like, give yourself a little bit of wiggle room in the event that, you put Capella and now you've got $1,800 in freed up cap space, right, too. So, but yeah, the position's really not bad. It's just, you're going to have to go down a couple $1,000. Outside of Whiteside, talk to me about the backcourt. CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard. We know the Timberwolves defensively have definitely been better with Towns out, but Wiggins is back, and all in all, a lot of it comes down to price point.
Yeah, I think that Damian and McCollum are both really affordably priced. McCollum's in that same price range with Kemba and with Derrick Rose. I have him projected, comparably to them. He should play 36, 37 minutes. Lillard is, I believe, third in the NBA in minutes per game. He's playing 37, 38 minutes. He is having his minutes staggered with McCollum, which benefits both of them, since, obviously they're playing around 30% of their minutes without the other one on the floor. Lillard's even cheaper on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings as well. So Lillard and then McCollum are my two favorite plays from Portland.
Okay. All right. And by the way, welcome back to everybody. Yeah, I think there are two people that watch the show every day and give it a thumbs down before we start, but watch the show every day. I mean, what assholes, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I just checked our new stream. We get it set up so I can read chat. Boom. 2 thumbs down. You guys appreciate that. In all seriousness, if you enjoy the show and you do want to help support us, it does help us a ton. And look at all those. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. If you do appreciate the show and you want to help support us, we do appreciate that greatly. And hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. All right. Anything else on Portland?
Yeah, if Whiteside sits, I would expect Anthony Tolliver to get the start. I have him in for a little over 30 minutes. He's not a very productive player. It basically would be the kind of guy where, he's minimum salary, so he projects for 17 to 18 points for me. That would make him a good point per dollar option, but one where I'm still not, really excited about him. But it's interesting because Portland doesn't have another center behind Whiteside. So you would have Tolliver, you would have, I'm guessing, Melo playing like backup 5. something of Melo, Hazonia, and Nasir Little. So I think Melo's rebounding numbers would go up a bit if Whiteside's out, which you would expect anyway. But I think you could get a little bit more productivity from Melo if he sits.
Okay. Let's close it out. OKC and Houston. By the way, today and tomorrow are the last days to use the 2020 promo code 2020. It gets you 20 days of Awesemo Plus all access platinum membership for $20. It's $1 a day. Go to awesemo.com/join and get in on that if you haven't done it yet. It really is the best promotion we've done yet. So it's a great opportunity to see what we have at Awesemo without having to fork out the full price. It's $20 for 20 days. Awesemo.com/join. Just use that promo code 2020. It's good through the 10th of January, so it'll be good through tomorrow. And when you do, if you sign up, say what's up in the Slack chat. We'll show you around. Friendly people in there talking DFS all day long, and we try and get in there as well. So head over to Slack chat and check that out. If you like talking sports when you're researching and doing all of that good stuff. And if you actually wanted to get a full year of All Access Platinum, we're doing 20% off for the new year. Promo code is New Year, all one word, New Year, 20% off Awesemo Plus Platinum Yearly Pass. It's $200 off. It's good through tomorrow as well. So we'll see you over there, awesemo.com/join. 2020 for $20 for 20 days for $20, or New Year for 20% off, $200, Awesemo Plus Platinum Yearly Pass. Let's keep it moving here. By the way, the NHL lineup builder and the deep dive. Adam, you did the deep dive today. Did you do the deep dive today? No. Adam Pfeiffer did it. Comprehensive game-by-game breakdown is free at awesemo.com. Lineup builder for NHL and the deep dive, both of them today are entirely free. So head over there and check it out after the show. Let's close it out with OKC and Houston. We've got the Thunder as 4-point dogs at home, 226.5 total. Some familiar faces meet up today, Adam, with Houston going up. Many former players. I think they've played each other once this season so far, but Westbrook facing his former team, Chris Paul facing his former team. Not something I'm going to read into all that much, but is this Westbrook's first time back in OKC? I know they've played each other once. I didn't even bother to look, but either way, highest projected scoring game of the night. Let's kick it off with the Thunder. Danilo Gallinari, by the way, remains questionable. If we get that news, I don't believe we will. We'll let you know. And so will the guys with the Live Before Lock. They're coming up after us. You've got on tonight's show, Eddie and Spags. They'll take you up till 7. Take it over, man.
Yeah, so to answer your question, it is Westbrook's first game at OKC.
Okay, thank you.
And also, I agree with you. Josh and I talked about it this morning. I'm not adjusting anything for Westbrook because of that, but it also doesn't hurt. It doesn't make me like him any less. I'm pretty happy that I'll be getting a lot of Westbrook anyway. He looks like one of the top options on the slate to me. He's really affordable, sub 9K on FanDuel and DraftKings. He's playing big minutes. He missed yesterday just because of rest. They're not playing him on back-to-backs, so no real reason not to be expecting 35, 36 minutes out of him for the season. He has a 32.5% usage rate, 32% assist percentage. It's not a great spot as far as pace or defensive ability go, because Oklahoma City is not a bad defense, but the salary is just really, really affordable. I expect Westbrook to be one of the highest owned guys tonight. I think that's for a good reason.
Okay. I think so too. I want to get it. By the way, James Harden playing his second of a back-to-back today. He shot 9 of 34 yesterday and 4 for 20 from 3 and had 81 fantasy points. Like, how does that even happen? Him and Trae Young, wildly inefficient, and still put up these monster numbers. People talking in chat right now, saying like, if you're not playing Harden, you hurt my soul. That was Kingslayer. You talked a lot about Westbrook. What do you see your exposure looking at like on James Harden?
Probably pretty low. It's just so hard to get there, especially on DraftKings, because there's just not really good value. And where I do go to value plays, I still think I can get more upside by getting, like one extra guy out of like Westbrook, Paul, Kemba, Rose, something like that, as opposed to going to multiple value guys. Obviously, whenever James Harden is projected for really low ownership, it's appealing because he does project as the highest scorer on the slate. But with Westbrook back, his usage rate does go down because he's playing a large chunk of his minutes alongside Westbrook. The assist percentage comes down as well. The salary is still really expensive, so I'm not anticipating getting too much Harden.
Okay. What are you doing with the rest? Oh, and by the way, I was tweeting about this with Wilson yesterday. PJ Tucker finally looked great, and then he got into foul trouble, but then comes back, plays 34 minutes, and 17 rebounds. Once in a while, you get those PJ Tucker games, and when you're on him, it's the most wonderful thing ever. I got the elusive PJ Tucker game and Birch in the same day. Phenomenal. But I also had some Lonzo Ball in a bunch of those lineups, and that was miserable because he decided he didn't want to play. But PJ Tucker, not something I expect to happen often. It was a great matchup against Atlanta. It's definitely different here. So let's get away from the backcourt, talk about the kind of peripheral guys here, and Clint Capella, and then we can kind of close it up. I want to talk more about OKC, of course, too. But what do you think of the rest of Houston?
Yes, I mean, I think PJ Tucker is the same play he is every day. Obviously it's not as good a play as it was yesterday against Atlanta, but it's still, he's going to have virtually no usage. You're hoping he gets, an extra couple of defensive stats or extra couple of rebounds. It's not as good a matchup for that, but it is still a slate with no value and a guy playing 36 minutes. So he's okay. I don't really like him. Same goes for Daniel House. Capella is my third favorite option from Houston, but he is playing the same position as Drummond and Steven Adams, so I wouldn't say priority for me, but he does look pretty good. One other thing to keep an eye on here, though, is that Eric Gordon is questionable for this game. That could have a pretty big impact on a $3,200 Ben McLemore.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense to me. How would you prioritize Houston then?
Westbrook number one, Capella. I'll put Capella ahead of Harden just because I think I get more. But I would say Capella, then Harden, then whoever, Tucker, House, okay. McLemore if Gordon's out.
And hey, by the way, the thumbs down button's there for a reason. You guys have an issue with it? No problem with that. All I'm saying, give us a chance. That's all. Give us a chance, 30 seconds is a tough time to really judge anything. Let's talk about OKC. We'll close it out, turn it over to the boys at Live Before Lock. And then you'll be back here tomorrow with Alex on the deeper dive, right?
Yes.
Okay. And strategy show, I'll be with Josh Engelman in the morning. That's always a fun one. I promise you, if you haven't been watching that, tune into it. I think you'll enjoy it. The OKC Thunder, we got into a little bit of this, but Danilo Gallinari went from out to questionable. Do you think he plays?
I have no idea. I am going to project him in just because of the midday upgrade. It's just really weird.
All right. Rick says, I think Adam is high on 60% of these shows. He's actually not. He's not. Unless I really don't know you.
No, I've been high on 0% of shows I've ever done.
I know. It's crazy, man. It is the truth. I don't believe it. I believe you. I don't believe the 60%. Stack Bundle says 60% is low. Tony says it's 100%. It isn't, man. It isn't. Unless you just have this crazy secret life.
It's just like my natural demeanor. Like I would be the most lethargic person if I actually did smoke.
Oh, that would probably be really bad. Yeah. I don't know if you could make it to your computer chair to do shows. All right. Close us out with the Thunder here.
Yeah, so I mean, Gallinari, I think does, like we said at the top of the show, it has an impact because it helps to solidify minutes for Dennis Schroeder and for the guards. It adds a little bit of usage because you're talking about a 23 to 24% usage guy potentially not being in the lineup. If he's in and you can get around 30 minutes from him, then he looks like a decent option. But most of my focus will still be on, $7,400 Chris Paul looks really good to me. Steven Adams, I think, is interesting. I've seen him. He was projected by other sites prior to the Brooklyn game for like 34, 35 minutes, depending where you looked, coming off of a 35-minute game and with no Nerlens Noel. He got to those 35 minutes, but I think it's important to keep in mind that was in overtime. We've seen Oklahoma City this season be keeping him around 28, 30 minutes normally. He played about 31 minutes in regulation against Brooklyn. So I'm okay going with like 32 minutes for Adams. I think that he's a good play. It's just a situation where I think that potentially you could see him a little bit over-owned because people are maybe projecting him a little bit too high in multiple places.
Okay. Top options from OKC?
Paul, Adams, Schroeder, SGA, and then Gallo if he plays.
Let's do this. 4 games, 8 teams. We broke them all down. The question I'd have for you, let's do this. If you're starting a lineup, right? I'm not going to say a cash lineup. Let's say you're in the $12 single entry on DraftKings, right? And you're hand building a lineup. Who are the first 3 players into this lineup? Single entry, decent prize pool, decent amount of entrance, but nothing crazy. And you're plugging 3 into your lineup out of the gate.
Westbrook, and for what it's worth, I'm looking at DraftKings pricing, but Westbrook, probably Rose, and God, it's so many guards. Because I'm looking only at point guard. That would be why. I was like, man, are there no forwards on the slate? Westbrook, Rose, and Drummond if I can get there. If not, then probably Horford.
Okay. And Citizen Cage, you're right about all of that, especially the last part of that sentence. But I've shared my history on here before, so we don't have time to go through that disaster. Anyway, I would say those 3 to me are also, all of those 3 up there. If you had to put a 4th in, let's do this because we're closing out the show. You got 3 to start. Those are your staples. You had to put a 4th. You said Westbrook. You said Drummond and Rose. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I said Westbrook, Rose, and then depending on money, Drummond or Horford.
Okay, I was going to say Horford is another one. So I guess Horford would be your number 4 with Drummond, Rose, and Westbrook then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Favorite value option?
None of the above.
That's tough.
Yeah, I mean, so are we talking like sub 5K?
Sub 5K, yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, you only looking at guards did not help your case in YouTube chat.
I think Bruce Brown at exactly 5K. Other than that, Kent Bazemore at 3,600, even though I hate it, but he's cheap.
All right, fair enough. That'll do it for us. Hey, thanks to you guys for hanging out. As always, we appreciate you being with us every night, hanging out at the Deeper Dive, presented by Super Draft. Stick around. Eddie Spags coming up next on Live Before Lock. Deeper Dive will be back tomorrow, same time right here. Good luck tonight, everyone.
up, guys? You should be starting up now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Awesemo.com Live Before Lock show. We're taking you through the day's 4-game slate, a slate full of intrigue, revenge, and rivalry, and all these games we have on today's slate. I'm Chris Spags, joined once again, a guy I haven't seen in a little bit, who's coming off the injured list, but fast, Eddie Fear. Welcome back. How are you doing at Live Before Lock?
Absolutely wonderful. Good to see you again. I missed you during my sojourn south of the border. Your smiling face, your dulcet tones, your brilliant patois. It's good to hear you again.
I'm glad to have you back. It's glad to see you doing well. I feel like I always worry when you miss a day because you are the Iron Man of NBA DFS. But Eddie, we have some good news because things have changed while you've been gone. And the future of daily fantasy sports has arrived, courtesy of Super Draft. You're going to experience Super Draft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way that you want. And Super Draft offers contests for NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, and PGA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for Super Draft today using the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, and claim your free $20 in Super Cash with your first deposit of $100 or more. So download Super Draft in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. Super Draft, no limits, more winning. Eddie, did you even know that the future of daily fantasy sports had arrived while you were gone?
I did. I think it may have arrived before I left. So it's been around for slightly longer than that. But yeah, I have heard. The trumpet sounded from on high, and I was roused in the valley.
It was crazy. There was like a spaceship landing and some explosions, and then all of a sudden, bam.
No, we met upon the level, and we're parting on the square.
It's
no one's going to pick that up.
And also, we do have a lot to talk about here, but real fast, last plug for now. Make sure to use that promo code 2020 at awesemo.com/join. That promo code is active for just, I think, 2 more days. And it's the best deal we're going to have for you, probably all calendar year long, at least until the Cyber Friday, Cyber Monday, all Black Friday, whatever day of the week, plus an adjective you want to come up. Those might be good too. But right now, it's the best one you're going to find. Use the promo code 2020 for 20 days of Awesemo Plus Premium for just $20 right now at awesemo.com/join. And they can even check out your rankings on there, Eddie. So, Eddie, I want to ask you a quick question here. Josh loves to give you the tough question. But I think we have one narrative here that's more important than a lot of the others. A revenge game tonight, a beloved player returning to a team who let him go. Anthony Tolliver might be getting some action tonight at Minnesota, Eddie. How important is he to you?
He's actually pretty important to me. He's staring back at me in my FanDuel placeholder right now. Look, this is that's kind of funny you went there.
I admit, I usually improv on the show. I thought about that one in advance. I had to.
That's a good show. The way you give it the long intro. I had a feeling Russell Westbrook was not coming at the end of it, but I thought you were gonna Chris Paul me or Shabazz Napier or like
Tolliver. I just care about what he's doing, man. I want to make sure he's okay.
I love Anthony Tolliver. Now he is a weird looking dude who looks like someone sucked on a milk dud for about 2 minutes and spit it out, but. He plays some hard-nosed basketball, and this is a team bereft of centers. It's center for the Trailblazers is becoming like drummers for Spinal Tap. They're going down in droves. So Hassan Whiteside has missed 3 games this year. Anthony Tolliver started all 3 of those games at center during the various states of injury for people, and I feel fairly certain that's what would happen tonight. He's 3,100 on DraftKings, 3,500 on FanDuel. And, will not be largely owned. Now, it's not a brilliant play. He's not super productive guy. But if he gets out there owned at, 4 or 5%, you have your downside case is Whiteside plays his normal minutes, which is possible. I don't know about likely. I would say I'd probably go greater than 50-50 that Whiteside plays not or plays less. But there's some chance that you're stuck with, 15, 16, 18 minutes of Anthony Tolliver, and that's generally going to suck for you. You're going to get like 11 out of that. That's not going to feel terribly good, but obviously you should be able to get away from that on DraftKings. And if you leave yourself a spot for Tolliver, have an escape plan, if you will. On FanDuel, you're taking the shot that Whiteside either doesn't play, in which case you get, 30, maybe even more because of the lack of other options for them to go there. I think after that, you would probably actually get Hazonia center, followed by Little center, followed by Mello center, though they haven't Whiteside has not missed any games since Melo came on board, so that's just a hypothetical tiering. But I don't think Melo at center is a tremendously good idea for them. But I have some interest there. Minimum price power forwards on FanDuel. You can make a Mike Scott argument for me. They haven't come out with that lineup, so I'm pretty sure they will start Mike Scott tonight. Whereas in the 7 games Joel Embiid has missed this year, none of them came against Boston. One of the games of the 2 previous games that Boston and Philly have played before this year, Horford sat. And rather than do the swing down Harris to the 4, Richardson to the 3, start someone of the Furkan Korkmaz or Matisse Thybulle at 2 ilk, they went with plan B and started Mike Scott. And I think they do that again. So I think they, again, resist the temptation to swing down other than Horford. So I think they'll start Horford and Scott in their normal 1-2-3 in that spot getting there. But lots to talk about here. I like if we get news in the next 47 minutes. I'm a pretty big fan if we get news specifically that both Towns is out and Whiteside is in, especially. That would help, but that second part not necessary. I kind of like Gorgie Jang still on FanDuel at $5,600. I think he's going a little undersold. These 2 teams did get together once previously this year, and they basically matched Gorgie with Whiteside minute per minute because they do not want Whiteside eating the children of whomever the hell else they're going to put out there at center. So in that game, Whiteside played 38 minutes and Gorgie Jang played 37. $5,600 on FanDuel. I have a more than passing interest in Gorgie Jang. Obviously, you need to know Towns is out basically to make that play. Otherwise, I'm not saying you can't play any Gorgie Jang because I still think it's more likely than not that Towns is out, but it's obviously getting close to him coming back. So you're taking a real risk at that point. You could still roll the dice in GPP, but if by 7 Towns is out and that game comes 1 hour after lock, I'm pretty happy with Jang. And if Whiteside is in, I'm even a little more happy because 5,600 is nice, and I think his minutes would again tend towards his ceiling. We have seen some really limited minutes out of him. This is, and I haven't seen that talked about that much, and I don't think he's going to be owned much at all. Obviously, still very much playable on DraftKings, but specifically on FanDuel at 5,600, I have a fair amount of interest in that play. It's a really interesting slate. It's a day of people taking like stats out of context. There's been a lot of
so I guess some stats you could take out of context, maybe the numbers and the splits for the Sixers without Joel Embiid, but
Sure.
A lot of the guys getting the boost there. Simmons still pretty much the same guy he is, same solid assist rate, same solid usage rate, or not, not the most impressive usage rate, but he's involved. He's got the ball in his hands a lot. Tobias Harris becomes a 1.2 fantasy point per minute player in court time without Embiid. Horford becomes a 1.1 fantasy point per minute player. Going to be more effective if we have Horford at the 5. I know last time it was him starting at the 4 with Kyle O'Quinn picking the start up, but that was against Indiana. So which Sixers do you like the most here? You mentioned Mike Scott. You expect him to start. Furkan Korkmaz, I think. It wouldn't shock me if he got the start either, but we won't know that news yet. Hopefully we'll know throughout the show. But who do you want to go to on the Sixers? Are there any guys you feel like are must-haves?
It's a little site dependent as always, but so when you say, is Simmons the same guy? For various conversations I've had today, someone hit me with, Simmons actually scores less fantasy points per game this year when Embiid is out. And that is accurate, but you are counting the fact that of those 7 games, the last 4 of them at least were blowouts. All of them. Mm-hmm. The last 4 games they played without Embiid, they lost by 15, lost by 18, lost by 20, and beat the Cavs by 47. So yeah, he scores less points when he plays 3 quarters. That's going to happen. If you went back and looked last year, I would be pretty sure that you'd have Ben Simmons scoring 5, 6, 7 extra fantasy points a game without Joel Embiid. I remember talking about it fairly extensively at that time. So I have heard a lot of, I don't think it changes Ben Simmons a lot. I have no rationale for that to make a ton of sense for me. If you want to say he doesn't get as much of a proportional bonus at his already increased salary as, say, Tobias Harris, who gets obviously more of a rebound share. Not that Simmons doesn't also rebound, but plays down a little bit more. Same thing with Al Horford. I could certainly get behind that. But I think the statement that like Simmons is the same without Embiid, I think is fraudulent on its face. So I would disagree with that
Yeah, no, I mean, just in terms of pure rates, like if you're going to take his rates with Embiid off versus Embiid on, it's just a negligible difference, which, I think the assumption would be it'd be a gigantic one. I agree. Theoretically, there should be a bigger one. But just if you were just to look at the numbers overall, they just don't increase. Like his assist rate's still around 36.
Over what time frame are you quoting
just
these
this
statistics? Right, and that would be some of my differentiation with that. But I mean, if you're looking minute to minute, even if that's the case, but there's a lot of other externalities involved there involving who is playing. But I will take your word for it that are the rates this year. But I don't think that's the correct expectation. I'll phrase it that way. But I would agree that since he is more expensive than both Harris and Horford, and B, I think they are increased more proportionately. It is, by any delineation of it, a bigger bump for those two gentlemen with the H surnames than it is for Simmons. But I like Simmons a lot on FanDuel. Point guard on FanDuel is really a bit of a sticky wicket for me. There's like 8 of them I like, as opposed to other positions when there's like 2. But point guard on FanDuel is really sticky. I like Lillard. I like Paul. I like Westbrook, obviously. I like Simmons. I'd like to get back to Brandon Knight at 3,700. I don't hate Jeff Teague at 5,600, depending on if Towns is in or out of that game. I kind of like him in this matchup. I think he's going to go a little under the radar. So point guard on FanDuel is a tough spot for me to fill out. But so it ends up being a little site dependent. FanDuel, the $5,400 Horford, I think is, pretty close to the first guy in your lineup at that site. He has not looked great. We have, some concern of some sort of lingering injury. He's obviously had comments about, his role in the offense and this, that, and the other thing. But getting Embiid out of there, moving down into center, him having some of the better individual matchups there. Revenge, if you want to be that guy. But that price on FanDuel and power forward, that's sort of first guy in there. DraftKings, it becomes a little stickier. I'm going to look at our ownership for the first time.
Also, Karl Anthony Towns officially out.
Okay, there you go. So I like Gorgie Jang on FanDuel. I don't think he'll be owned enough. That news came a little earlier than I would have liked. Let's see what else. Towns out. I like Teague at 52 on DraftKings. I don't think he'll be owned enough. They want to play him more than Napier. The times that they don't, either Teague is injured or was just sick or is returning from a leg injury. But if they're both all systems go, we are tending to get 28, 30 minutes of Teague and 20, 22 minutes of Napier about 80% of the time. So there's certainly some risk. Napier gets hot, for example, which isn't the weirdest thing in the world against a really terrible Portland defense. Then, Teague doesn't come in that much and, it ends up with a lower game. But most of the time, I think you get 28 plus minutes out of Teague in this spot. They're on an island. I like Jeff Teague quite a bit. They played earlier this year. I seem to recall him having a pretty good game in a similar position. It wasn't that long ago. I will look it up. Not that one game is a terribly big sample, but sorry.
The issue on DraftKings with Teague is just that he and Napier are both the same price. And I feel like for me as a person making lineups there and just how that lineup does go, where I agree with your take. They want to get more minutes to Teague. They have invested in a lot more money in him than they have Napier, but it just seems like at the same price, both those guys have the same opportunity. And it's very possible to me that Napier steals minutes away. So I kept getting Teague lineups and I'm like, well, if I have Teague here, I need to have Napier in at the same price because projections are extremely close. And actually, I don't know if it changed, but Alex's projections did favor Napier a little bit earlier today. Let me just double check if they still do.
Yeah, I'll go on record disagreeing with that.
He has them dead even now, 26.1 to 26.1.
Right, but what does he have their minutes projections for?
27 for Teague, 26 for Napier.
Right, and I think that number should be closer to 29 and 22. So that's where we disagree. But and again, when they played not that long ago, Napier played 30 and Teague played 27, which should make you feel fine that they're happy to play them 57 minutes collectively in this matchup, meaning they played astride each other for 9 minutes. Teague had 18, 6, and 8 with a block. Napier had 18, 4, 4, and 3. So both of them would have made you feel just fine at this price. But this part of I would rather play Teague than Napier. I don't think Napier is a bad play. I am more concerned about Napier's minutes than Teague. We'll see how that goes. I mentioned Jang extensively, just fine on DraftKings. I think goes under-owned in that block of centers in his price range. And the matchup is really good. And I think people are understandably, but incorrectly worried about his minutes in this particular spot. They don't have anyone else with the size that they really want to put out there in this particular matchup. So sure, we've seen games of him recently, 20-something, 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 20-something. I think they stack up on him pretty heavy here. So I can't safely project him for 37 minutes, but I think 33 is a reasonable projection. I would be, and he hasn't played over 30 minutes, I want to say in like 3 or 4 consecutive games. So I totally get the concern, but I think you will get over 30 minutes here. And so for that reason, I have some interest in a pretty low Gorgie Jang, who, if you're just game log watching, isn't going to look that appealing.
One question which I saw people talking about earlier, which I'm curious what your thoughts are. If Whiteside isn't in, do you think that Jang sees less minutes, or does he see more minutes because there's nobody to compete with him, because you have guys like Tolliver? Also, people in the chat asking about Moses Brown, who I don't believe is with the team right now. I know he got sent down. I didn't see him get recalled, but I guess Moses Brown, the first question for Jessup in the premium Slack. The second question, do you think that Jang gets less valuable if Whiteside is in, or is he more valuable if there isn't a Whiteside?
I would want Whiteside in if I'm playing Gorgie Jang. Moses Brown, I do not know if he's with the team. You've got me. I recall a send down. He is not officially on the injury report listed as in the G League, but that just means he didn't recently go down. Basically, the way they do that is, so if you look at the Timberwolves today, they're going to tell you that Keelan Martin and Jalen Noel and Jordan McLaughlin are out with the G League because they were recently up. Moses Brown went down long enough now that they stopped saying that day by day. So that doesn't mean that Moses Brown is with the team. But I honestly don't know. I'm not playing Moses Brown. I have no reason to think that if Whiteside is limited or out, you get anything other than like the most minutes. You at that point are banking on Tolliver injury and them going that way. And they have played Nasir Little at center. They have played Mario Hezonja at center this year. I've seen both of them. So, especially with no Towns out there, I don't think they would need to go that deep. So I even if you told me he was with the team, I don't think I would play any Moses Brown. I'd go ahead and I would rather play Norvell Pell if I was looking to go center dumpster diving.
Yeah, I tried to do some sleuthing on it earlier, and it's actually kind of odd. So he got sent down for Jalen Horde on the first of the year after they had just called him up, I think, like the day
That's
before.
the last I saw. I remember reading about it when I was in Mexico.
But so I thought that, so basically on the website, they're still tagging him in every Trailblazers article as though he's with the team, which I thought was odd because I was going through the game notes to see if there was any reference to him at all on the post that he was tagged on the Trailblazers site. And it doesn't matter that much, but I just thought it was interesting because sometimes these guys, they pop up out of nowhere, and they kind of similar with Naz Reid initially when he first started getting some run in this most recent stint. But yeah, Moses Brown I agree, would not be a guy I'd be dying to play here. Let's keep going through, I guess, the Whiteside permutation. So if Whiteside, we don't know his status, would you want to have some Whiteside today going against a guy in Jang who's theoretically seems like he should be a good matchup? And Whiteside's had these really big ceilings with people not really getting.
He is. Whiteside bludgeoned the living crap out of them when they play. I remember 22 rebounds. I don't remember the rest of the line, but I am positive. I'm not positive. He had 20-something rebounds in that game. I'll just find the box score since we've talked about it 6 times. There it is. Download it. Hassan Whiteside was 16 points, 22 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and 7 blocks. So yeah, that would have done you okay. That's a 60-something burger in 38 minutes. Let me make sure I had the Jang minutes right. Yes, Jang played 37 minutes, only shot 3 for 12 from the field, though all 3 of his baskets were 3-pointers. That's kind of cute. 15 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block would have done just fine for you. See, the issue is upper respiratory infection is the one kind of sickness that bugs me. Like, everything else doesn't bother me, but that's like breathing. And don't get me wrong, Hassan Whiteside not known for his amazing cardio and dashing around the court. So my answer would be I am concerned by upper respiratory infection specifically. But yes, I would still have some. It's obviously a massive spot. I mean, it's an interesting situation regarding Drummond because, again, 2 days ago, the last time I did a show, we opened the show. And in this exact same matchup, I went, yeah, my favorite play on the slate is Andre Drummond. I would have double what the field zoned. That worked out just fine. Although there were a lot of very good centers that day, I should point out. Adams got 40-something and Whiteside got 50-something on that same day. So yeah, it was hard to screw up center, in fairness. So it didn't end up being that critical. But here, your prices come up some $500. Obviously, identical matchup. You were talking about our 2020 offer earlier in the show. Drummond just hung his third 2020 on Tristan Thompson in the last 2 years, again, which I specifically alluded to as a significant possibility on that Tuesday show, and he went out and did it. I had him projected for 56 points in that game. I have him projected for 56 points in this game. He was my favorite play of the slate on that game. I think I'd be under the field on this game, which is really weird how that works. But people are forcing a lot of pretty crappy value to get to him.
Well, who do you feel like is that crappy value that people are forcing?
Svi Mccollum. Like, if you're playing Svi Mccollum in tournaments, you need him to have the best game of his career. I'll throw it to you. What do you think is the most fantasy points? We'll use DraftKings, which is the higher one, that Svi Mccollum has had in a NBA basketball game.
32, probably?
Ooh, 26.5.
Wow, really? He didn't crack 30? All right.
Yeah, no, never cracked 27. So, like, when you, and don't get me wrong, he's getting more minutes. He's played all of, 60, 70 fantasy NBA basketball games. And really only with the significant minutes to do that in, 3 blowout games with the Lakers and about 15 this year. So hasn't had that many shots to do it. Don't get me wrong. And this is Cleveland. So that's a fine shot for him to get his career best game. But just understand, if you're playing popular guy in GPPs, you're saying he's going to have the best game of his career tonight, or you're making a mistake, because he's going to be 35 or 40% owned. And I will take the under on him having the best game of his career on any particular night. That's my theory on it. So, I don't think he's dreadful, but I ranked him a B in cash, where he's probably going to play 30-something minutes, starting or coming off the bench. I don't know if we have the lineup yet, but I presume he'll start again. That super large Wood, Drummond, Demboya lineup, I don't think comes back anytime soon. So I imagine he starts. He should play 33, 34 minutes, maybe even a little bit more. Not a very good fantasy producer. Probably gives you 22, 23 fantasy points, and probably doesn't kill you. I have him as a B in cash. I think he's a fine cash game play. He maybe should be even an A in cash now that I think about it, but I have him as a C in tournaments. Because, again, you need him to have his career best game. That's not a position I'm terribly comfortable with. So
does that apply for each of the sites too, even on FanDuel, where he's a little bit cheaper relative to the overall salary?
It would have more to do with the other options at the position. So that is a DK distinction where there are no positions. Mm-hmm. On FanDuel offhand, I'm probably, if I can get to it, and it's, again, a day with very little value, I'd like to come up with $900 for Bruce Brown. I'd like to come up with $800 for Marcus Smart. I would just probably play Ben McLemore. You have some chance of Eric Gordon being out. And even if Eric Gordon is in, Ben McLemore should play 30 minutes, give or take a couple either side there. So, I don't know. That would be tough for me. I like him more on FanDuel, I suppose. But if he's going to be super popular, dude, which I understand it, people, do minutes times projection, and he's going to get spitted out by a lot of algorithms there. I'd play him over Furkan Korkmaz. I'd have to sit there and look at Langston Galloway for a while, but even his minutes haven't been secure. Again, the same match a couple days ago. I think he played 19, 20 minutes. Hard to go there, but I would look long and hard at Ben McLemore and Tony Snell and Smart and Brown. And you have Richardson's only 5,900 there, and Harden is only 11.2 there, and Wiggins is only 7K there. I will use this as an opportunity to segue into Andrew Wiggins. Yeah, I gotta like Andrew Wiggins at $7,000. No one wants to play him. He was dreadful last game. Looked disinterested, didn't, shoot the ball or rebound the ball or do much with the ball, frankly. But I still think Wiggins without Towns opens a big upside, and I think zig when they zag and everyone's ass is burnt from the last time is a real thing. And I guess we can go look at that same box score, because, again, Towns was out the last time they played Portland. He took 24 shots, 13 for 24, 33.6 rebounds, an assist, and 3 blocks against this Portland team 10 days ago with exactly the same players available. Yeah. So, he just dropped 50 on them. Like, I didn't know that when I gave the advice, but in case you were curious if it's possible, it's obviously possible. There's a lot of players on this team who are not terribly inclined to take a bucket load of shots. So I probably don't want Teague and Wiggins, but I like Teague or Wiggins at 5.2 or 5.6 and 7K flat. Don't feel super safe about either one, but it's a 4-game slate. I got to find a bit of an edge somewhere. And if the rest of the field is playing 4,200 on Svi Mccollum, I'd rather spend 5,200 on Teague.
Is Jarrett Culver of interest to you at all, given that he just kind of seems to keep getting there? And also, weirdly, he averages the same fantasy points per minute as Wiggins with Towns off.
Sure.
The usage is pretty different. Wiggins a 30% usage guy compared to Culver, who really doesn't do much. But he keeps getting there.
Culver's really good defensively, a big deflections guy. He's a lot in sort of the mode of Covington or one of those guys. So like him much more on FanDuel. Small forward, 4,900, and positions matter. So especially with no Towns, which doesn't hurt. I like Culver certainly a fair amount there. So on FanDuel, Culver would end up being my favorite. Wiggins fine, either one, and DK just for pricing reasons. All those guys are priced fairly appropriately, but I don't think the ownership will be quite where it should be. So yeah, I got again. Portland is really bad defensively. They are, and this is a slate with not a lot of really bad defenses. Cleveland's bad, but they're really bad and slow. Portland moves pretty quick, and they're pretty bad defensively. So, it's also worth pointing out, if you take, Hassan Whiteside off the court and put Anthony Tolliver in there, that's a lot of shots to go around. So, again, conversely, something I got wrong on Tuesday, I was not a big fan of Carmelo Anthony. And Tuesday was a good show, but someone asked me what I gave myself, and I said B-, and they're like, what are you talking about? You had almost everything right. I'm like, yeah, but I really didn't like Carmelo Anthony, and he was really important. He put up 40-something fantasy points at $5,700. Yeah. And you're going to get lots of stuff right and lots of stuff wrong. But you're in my job, the thing I do that pisses me off the most, that I feel I did badly, is when I say, don't play a guy, and then that guy is a critical part of the winning lineup. So
Toronto giving up the corner three a lot because Bridges killed him the other day or yesterday.
That's a really good point. That's an excellent point. I completely agree with that. But Melo, took the most shots on the team and was I think he was 10 for 17, which is unusually efficient for him, and got a couple steals. So that was a top 5% probably outcome for Melo. There are 1% outcomes where he gets 50 or 55 or something. So I still don't think it was a particularly great play, but now you're looking at today against a much worse defense, and potentially with no Hassan Whiteside out there, being filled in with 30 something minutes of a very low usage guy in the personage of Anthony Tolliver. So especially if Whiteside's out, I certainly probably rank those guys. It's close, but it's probably Lillard, Melo, McCollum for me at this point in this particular matchup.
We got a couple super chats we could burn through real fast, because we appreciate all you guys doing that whenever you do, no matter the amount. We appreciate the support. And also, if you want to support us for free, hit that like button right now. The likes help us out quite a bit. And our boy Laffy dug us a bit of a hole by pointing out dislikes. Apparently people don't like that. So let's just focus on the positive side and just hit that thumbs up. Courtney Crump, thank you for the super chat, asking, any chance Nasir Little gets more minutes? You sort of addressed that, but do you think Nasir Little should even be a consideration?
Well, it's a 4-game slate. It's difficult for me to think he gets more than we don't have Whiteside news yet. So if Whiteside is in, don't do that. If Whiteside is out, I'm still going to say that's too cute for me. I would still go with 0. That's still going to be in the Moses Brown class for me. That's still going to be in the James Ennis. I did not rank. These are guys who are just a little bit too cute for me. And again, when I do my rankings every day, it's literally a list of every player I would have one or more shares of in tournaments. I have no Nasir Little. I have no Mario Hezonja. I have no Moses Brown. There's a couple guys who barely squeak in there. I would have a share of Norvel Pell. He actually got ranked randomly. Not randomly, but he makes an appearance. I don't think I would quite get there. If I'm looking on this team for value, and these are guys who can end up picking up this minutes, because Stotts will run this team very small, and this is a team you can do so against at this point with this Minnesota team. So I would go first with Bazemore, who will be the chalkier option, who I have projected a little bit better. And then I'd go to Anthony Simmons before I went into the Little category. Scal being out does help a little bit, but Little feels a little too cute for me. You need just a couple too many things to break your way. Not quite high enough usage. There's just not quite enough there for me. And it's also worth pointing out that this Minnesota team, when you get rid of Karl-Anthony Towns and put Gorgie Jang out there, becomes really good defensively. Legitimately very good. Culver is a very good defender. Jang is a very, very good defender. Covington's a really good. They're a very good defensive team at this juncture. It's there's been a couple of people who've commented, and I don't recall the exact stat, but if you look at the sample size of games with Townsend, versus games with Towns out, they go from being one of the best offensive teams in the game to one of the worst offensive teams in the game, and from one of the worst defensive teams in the game to one of the best defensive teams in the game. It's a pretty significant change with how the offense and defense operate.
We also got a notification while you from actually who was the first one to get it? I'll give credit to El Negro Loco, one of our regulars there. Mike Scott starting officially for the Sixers. So what are you doing with Scott? Is he a guy that's a priority for you to get in now relative to the timing of the slate? Do you think the ownership's going to get too high? Where are you landing with Scott?
It's interesting because I like him a lot on FanDuel, and I'd probably try to play 0 on DraftKings. it's an interesting thing. Like, he's 4,000. That news came out early enough that I think we get. He's 4,000 on DK, I think. So it's supposed to be minimum. He's $1,000 over the minimum on a night where the value is pretty bad. And, it is not a good matchup whatsoever. So I would imagine I didn't do this hypothetical projection, even though I thought he was going to start. I imagine I would project him for 21 minutes and 14 and a half fantasy points. Maybe that's a little low for him. We'll go 15 and a half even in the matchup. But yeah, so on FanDuel, there's enough of an upside there. You can randomly spike 22, 23. He's the absolute floor. I'm kind of excited about that. DraftKings, I think I'll go 28% owned, and I'll probably just go somewhere else. That's how it feels. He's not like a horrific play on DraftKings, and there was one day this year where it was a similar situation, and they blew a team out, and he played the entirety of one quarter and had the most shots on the team and shot 9 of 12. I think you and I may have had a show on that day. That is possible, but it's not frequently the way this works out. And I guess let's see what happened the last time he started against Boston, because we have that. He started against Boston, played 29 minutes, which would be well more than I would expect him to play today, but he played 29 minutes in his last start against Boston with no Al Horford again, and I believe the rest of the team present. Make sure I'm getting all this. Yes, with everyone else in there. And in those 29 minutes, he had 15 points, 4 rebounds, and no other statistics. So yeah, about 2/3 point a minute. You'd expect maybe a little higher, 0.75, 0.8, something like that. But I think the minutes are less. I think the production ends up being less. So I think he gets more popular than he should be. That's just my guess. So if you disagree with that part of the math, if you think he comes in 15, 17%, I'd kind of like him at that point, or at least that'd be sort of a neutral point for me. I think he ends up being over-owned. I'm probably trying to look elsewhere in what's not a brilliant matchup. In that game, by the way, he also shot 5 of 7 and 5 of 7 from 3. He did not take a 2-point shot and made 5 of his 7 threes, and really still wasn't good enough for $4,000. So
on the year, averaging just 0.68 fantasy points per minute when sharing the court with Horford and Simmons with Embiid off. So as you mentioned, just not a great per minute guy overall.
Yeah, and he's also averaging. I mean, he's averaging well under his career numbers this year, but a lot of the time it's running the second unit, and he ends up out there next to Embiid because Embiid has that different rotation. That's again sort of a jumbly stat. It's the same thing with I talked about the Ben Simmons sort of missed stat appropriation. You get a lot of the same with Kemba, where people are like, Kemba can't handle Ben Simmons, can't score on Ben Simmons. Last year against Ben Simmons, Kemba had someone can correct me on this because someone said something in the chat and I topped my head at this, but I'm fairly certain he played 4 games and had 55, 60, and 80 in 3 of those games. So it's not a Kemba Ben Simmons thing. It has a lot to do with, there was a whole Cody Zeller screen thing there that was brilliant, but he had an 80-point game against it. Now this is an entirely different 76ers team, and it's better in many ways, and his 2 guys much better, and that Josh Richardson out there can cover a lot of that slack, but Embiid being gone is going to change the screening role, and Tice, who does pretty well off the ball, is not quite Cody Zeller good, and there's a lot of shit going on here, but long story short, to bury the lead, I like Kemba Walker quite a bit. I don't know what we haven't projected at, but it's going to be lower than I would want. I have a strong feeling. Yeah, I don't see his name yet. So I like Kemba Walker quite a bit. Yeah, we have Kemba Walker at 16%. Now, this whole team is there, and obviously he was the juice in Charlotte. That needs to be stated outright. He's not going to get 80 tonight. I don't think he's going to get 80 tonight, but I think he's a very solid play. I haven't projected for close to 40, and at 6,500, that feels just fine to me. So Kemba, actually my favorite member of the Celtics, just a hair over Jason Tatum, who I don't particularly like the matchup, and Scott does an adequate job. It's one of the reasons that he's out there, but he's really cheaply priced. He's under 7K, and he hasn't been there in a while. Tatum is legitimately underpriced, so probably ranking those guys a little site dependent. Kemba and then Tatum.
I got a question from this game from Tanner T. As part of a super chat. Thanks, Tanner, for the super chat.
Tanner, congratulations on your. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. Go ahead.
Love the show. Haven't heard much on Tice today. I have him pretty highly owned considering the 4K price tag and easier matchup without Embiid. Do you have any thoughts there? Would you be interested in Tice's potential pivot, perhaps, to Mike Scott?
I like him more now because people are going to Mike Scott. Yeah, exactly. And I think he's also power forward center. I think they may actually be. Mike Scott might be small forward, power forward. I don't know what Mike Scott's DK positions are. That's a fine question. Look that one up for me.
I'm pretty sure you're right that he's small forward, power forward.
I think he's small and forward power, but yeah, I'd rather certainly play Tice at this point. Previously, I was fairly ambivalent because the ownership was going to be, I expect, appropriate if nothing else. I would have slightly preferred PJ Tucker. I don't hate the matchup for PJ Tucker. Getting some center time again, and $4,100 is really quite cheap. But I like him quite a bit. Still prefer Tucker, but I like Tice a little more than I did before Scott starting news came out.
So let's transition. We got another super chat from Darren Anderson asking Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Chris Paul in a DK GPP. And if you want to take that one, I would favor Paul personally. But if you want to take the one and then just transition into this whole game, because Westbrook, obviously a guy we haven't touched on much yet, and he is a key player du jour, ownership-wise, and in terms of the narratives, he's in the main event tonight.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I would prefer Chris Paul. And the numbers sort of back that up for a while. There's also some vengeance crap there if you want to look at for him. Again, he did absolutely nothing in their earlier game this year. They're playing here in OKC, which I think is a relevant narrative for Russell Westbrook, and I'll get to that in a second. But not quite as relevant for Chris Paul, who, again, was not particularly brilliant in his return to Houston at the start of the year when he was super fresh. And, yeah, you didn't get much out of that whatsoever. Also seems like kind of a bitter guy too. So
yes,
but I would
reports
just prefer
are that's correct.
I would prefer Chris Paul for his enhanced fourth quarter role recently. I actually think his underlying third level stats indicate that he should have actually been more productive recently than he has been. The last game, even where he did get to 40 in regulation and 45 after overtime, but he had 7 in the first half. He put up 33 in the second half of that last game. His form looks really good for me. They're also on an island. You're still getting, obviously this applies to both SGA and Chris Paul, but Gallinari out, or I would think limited. Now, unlike Towns, who I'm almost certain would be limited if he came back in because he's dealing with, a sprained knee. Gallo might not be because he had a bruise. So, there is just a different way they treat things like a hammy pull versus just having a contusion, which is what I believe Gallinari is dealing with. But the fact that he's still questionable up to game time makes me think that he would likely be limited as well. So I'm not terribly interested in getting to some Gallo, though I did rank him, I believe. Midday upgrade. I think it's more likely than not he plays. I'll go 60-40, but I would significantly prefer Chris Paul. If I was, playing today, I would probably have about twice as much Chris Paul as SGA, but I do think they're both very much in play.
How are you feeling about Westbrook relative to the field? Because we got some questions about his ownership. People asking if you would go Kemba at much lower ownership and a much lower price than Westbrook. So Westbrook, we're going to say he's going to be 40 to 50% expected ownership right now based on our run of ownership at Osmo.com. What are you doing with Westbrook if he's between 40 and 50? Does that feel right to you? Does that feel too high? Where would you go?
Well, Kemba to me is more of an identically priced Derrick Rose pivot on DraftKings than a Russell Westbrook pivot for what it's worth. That's sort of how I view it in my head. I have to really like Russell Westbrook. I know someone mentioned that Alex wanted to pivot off of him, and I presume that is at his significant ownership. And I actually, when I ran my guess at ownership before, had him a little higher than this. I think he'll be in the high 40s. Which we unfortunately won't see for a couple hours. Although we do have half the game starting at 7:00, so it should be a good daddy like.
That's all we ask. America's favorite game deserves that.
Absolutely. I like to get away from chalk a la Svi Mccollum, but I like Russell Westbrook. It is all the vogue to say I'm super math quant guy, so I don't count things like revenge and narrative. I think that's sort of a cop out. I will happily say that I have absolutely no idea how to quantify such a thing. but I think denying that it exists is the incorrect way to go. Like, there's something in the universe called dark matter, which we know has to exist. Otherwise, all the laws of physics wouldn't work. There's clearly a lot of mass out there. We just don't know what the hell it is, but we understand that it's there and we acknowledge its existence. I feel safe in saying that it is appropriate to adjust your projection for Russell Westbrook today positively by some amount because of the narrative. I have no idea what that amount is. I'm not even going to suggest a number, but I do think Russell Westbrook, with the fact that he has his hands on the ball, he's well rested, gets to call his own number plenty. I think it is incorrect and a bit reductive to just say, no, I think this is exactly the same as if he played, this Oklahoma City team and hadn't played there for, most of a decade himself. I think it is appropriate to goose his number by some figure. I don't know if that's 1/10 of a point or 4 points, but it's, I do think it exists, not to an extent that, like, you don't need any reason to play $8,400 Russell Westbrook. That's just still too cheap for Russell Westbrook in the fastest game of the night by a point or two. But so he projects really nicely. Now, he's obviously a super popular guy. Again, someone in chat said, is it okay to have 100%? Someone responded, that's dangerous, which it is. It's dangerous to have 100% anyone, because if something goes wrong with that guy, your night basically gets screwed. So totally agree with the it's dangerous part. He could shoot like 4 of 20, and it's like, yeah, but he kind of needs to shoot 4 of 20 to be bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he shoots 4 of 20, he's also going to get a half dozen free throws, which means he's going to have 15 points. And then if he only gets like a combined 17 rebounds and assists, you might get away with him having only 35 fantasy points, which would be bad for his 8,400. But I don't know. 8,400 is still 84 the hell 100. Like, yeah, that's just objectively too cheap. Like, I haven't projected for 49 fantasy points, which I feel might be a little. I'm curious what Osimo has him projected for.
Alex has him at 47.9 and pretty close to that on FanDuel, which would still make him the best mix of value and raw points on the slate. So yeah, that to me is the thing. Like, yeah, if you add in revenge and just take a median projection, which is what this number is.
I'm happy to ignore revenge. I like to point that out because I think it's important to look at things correctly, heuristically. And I think there's not, there's been a lot of talk recently with established players who are playing, 6 digits a day, hanging them up because they say there's no edge left. And I would like to humbly suggest that there are some edges left that may not be determined entirely statistically. Leave it at that. So I think it is occasionally worth buying. It's happened several times this year. Like, we had JaVale McGee Day where we collectively won $250,000 for 5 people. Because I went, look, I can't justify this on stats, but based on these comments I heard from this guy and the coach and the fact that Dwight Howard is older, and I think randomly you could get 26 minutes out of JaVale McGee tonight in a brilliant matchup, and he went out and that happened, and there was no statistical reason to verify that theory. So I would humbly suggest that we should not completely ignore things that don't jump off an algorithm. That's all.
Yeah. And if a guy just, has 33% usage and is priced down for no particular reason, like, and he's also, going to be angry, like, that's great. These are all good things. And then it just gets better.
Yeah. So I don't even know angry is necessary.
No, closure. He just probably is a guy who just wants closure in the situation.
Going home. I mean, I think he's always angry. Like, I think he's the Hulk, basically. Like, I don't ever see Westbrook on the court going like, that guy's just mellow. He's just out there hooping a little. Like, he does not mess around and gets a triple double. He gets a triple double. Like, anyway. So, yeah.
Let's burn through some of the questions in the premium Slack because a couple of these may be relevant. Rinpack, a regular here who's asking a question. He's the most recent question, so I'm not cutting in the queue for one of our pals, but just because it's a question a lot of people will have. Rose versus Kemba straight up. Who do you prefer? Oh, wait, Hassan Whiteside also available, according to Casey Holdall. So
I love it. Give me my so I like Whiteside a lot. He will still probably be under-owned. I suspect Whiteside, because of the existence of Drummond and several, like, if you're paying up, you're going to play Drummond. If you're paying down, there's lots of really attractive guys who cost 5, 6, 7K, among the whatever, Adams, Tristan, Capella, all those guys tiers. So I think you still get, because of the late news and everything, like 7% owned Whiteside. I'd have more than that. So I like getting Whiteside. I really like Gorgie Jang. I think there's a real chance he gets 37 minutes or something. I feel safe projecting him for over 30 because of the matchup. And dude's really cheap. So, yeah, there's that stuff. I would play Kemba Walker in one lineup over Derrick Rose. We have Derrick Rose for a projection over 30%. We have Kemba Walker for, I don't know, I have to scroll down, half that. So one lineup I would play Kemba because I have them projected very similarly. I think I may actually have Kemba for a point more. I have Kemba for a point more. So for me, that's the perfect storm of guy who's half owned and I have just outright scoring more. It doesn't happen that often. So I would play Kemba. I would play more Kemba. I don't mind Derrick Rose whatsoever. It's a brilliant matchup. I think they back off the 30 plus minutes thing. I have them projected for 27 right now. They've made several comments, and I'm not certain this game necessarily stays close. And, the efficiency is occasionally a little suspect, but I like Derrick Rose just fine. So I suspect I would be close to the field on Derrick Rose and just double the field on Kemba Walker. But because of their ownerships, if I'm building a lineup, I would play Kemba.
Okay. Let's see here. I don't think I've seen Christian Wood have a good game when Drummond also plays. Is that a thing? Bogey asking in the premium Slack, would you have any Christian Wood interest here? Potentially, I guess, as a pivot to the people who are just locking Drummond in. Maybe he gets into foul trouble. Maybe it's a blowout. What are the ways that Wood can get there for you?
Yeah. He could start. I don't know if we have a lineup yet, but that's a thing. I cannot project Christian Wood